In a quiet Nigerian village, a boy watched a mango tree grow for 13 years, but it never gave him a single fruit. Until one day it did, and everything changed. What if the thing you're waiting for isn't late, but just preparing to be great? This is the story of Ifedayo, a boy who hated waiting, and the tree that taught him everything about time, patience, and purpose. Before you skip this video, ask yourself, have you ever rushed something and ended up with regret? Then this story is for you. In the orange-roofed town of Ogboko, time moved slowly, like the wind that whispered through rustling cassava fields, like the goats that wandered the red clay roads with no urgency in their hooves. Ogboko was a town of rhythm and routine. The people believed in process. They planted when the rains fell. They harvested when the sun had baked the land dry. They waited, and they endured. But not Ifedayo. Ifedayo was 12 years old, all elbows and questions. His hair was always roughly brushed, and his shorts always seemed too short because he never stood still long enough for his mother to measure his growth. He was the kind of boy who never waited to finish chewing before talking. If there were 5 biscuits on a plate, he would eat 3 before offering one. Ifedayo always wanted things now. Why must we wait for the oil to heat before adding the tomatoes? Why must we wait for the rain to fall before planting? Why can't I open my birthday gifts now, Mama? It's almost midnight. His mother, Mama Ronke, would always smile her patient teacher's smile. A tall woman with kind, intelligent eyes, she had taught Primary 3 in Ogboko Central School for nearly 15 years. Her students learned their ABCs from her, but at home, she taught Ifedayo lessons far harder than the alphabet, like patience, self-control, and contentment. Time is not your enemy, Ife, she would say. It is your friend. If you fight it, you will always lose. But Ifedayo wasn't interested in friendship with time. His father, Baba Dimeji, was the opposite. He moved slowly, spoke rarely, and listened often. A farmer by trade, he understood seasons better than he understood people, and still, he understood people quite well. Baba Dimeji often told his son, "The earth doesn't reward haste. Try to dig up yam too early, and you'll find only shame and ants." Ifedayo rolled his eyes at such sayings. To him, they sounded like riddles from old men who didn't know the world was changing. After all, there were smartphones now. Fast cars. Instant noodles. Who had time to wait? And then came the mango tree. It stood behind their small compound, just beside the stone fence. It was tall, broad, and deeply rooted. Its bark was dark and cracked like an old man's hands, and its leaves were a tired green. It had been planted the year Ifedayo was born, a gift from Baba Dimeji's elder brother, who said, "Let this grow with him. One day it will feed him." 12 years had passed. Not a single fruit had fallen. Ifedayo stared at it often with contempt. Why do we keep it? It has no use. It's just there. Baba Dimeji would chuckle. You are still growing. So is the tree. When the time is right, you will both blossom. Ifedayo hated that answer. He had waited his whole life, and had seen other mango trees bear fruit in just 5 or 6 years. Their neighbor's tree had been planted long after his and already gave sweet, golden mangoes every April. What if this one is cursed? He asked his mother one morning while brushing his teeth on the veranda. Mama Ronke laughed. If only trees could curse. No, my child, this tree is only late. But late does not mean lost. Ifedayo stomped his foot. It is lost, I'm sure. Still, every few months, he'd check, staring up into the branches for any sign of a blossom. None. He would then take a stick and scratch the dry earth around it, muttering things like, "Even my baby cousin can talk now. This tree can't even fruit." The tree stood silent. Then, one Monday in school assembly, their headmistress made an announcement. There will be an essay competition across the LGA. The theme, the power of patience. All public schools are invited. 1 winner per school. 2 weeks from now. The prize is 50,000 Nigerian nairas and a scholarship. A wave of excitement rushed through the pupils. Ifedayo's eyes lit up like fire. He was good at writing. He'd always been praised for how quickly he could finish classwork and beat everyone a hand in assignments. He turned his classmate, Fola, the best student in school. Smart, soft-spoken, and precise. This one is mine, he whispered smugly. Fola didn't answer. She only smiled and opened her notebook. Back in class, Ifedayo wasted no time. That night, he stayed up and wrote a full 2-page essay. No planning, no corrections, just fast, flowing sentences filled with big words like perseverance, resilience, and patience, even though he barely understood them. He submitted his essay 2 days later with pride. Fola submitted hers the following week. On the day the principal read the results, the whole school gathered under the neem trees. The winner of the Ogboko Central School entry is... She paused dramatically. Fola oitund. The crowd clapped. Ifedayo froze. Her essay showed deep understanding, clear examples, and strong language. A worthy representative, the principal added. Ifedayo didn't clap. He didn't speak. He simply walked away from the crowd, straight out of the school compound, and didn't stop until he was under the mango tree behind his house. He sat down hard and stared at its unfruitful branches. You and I are the same, he whispered bitterly. Always waiting, always behind. He didn't hear his father approach. Baba Dimeji sat beside him, wordless for a while. Then he said, "Do you know what the tree is doing?" Ifedayo didn't answer. "It is pushing its roots deep," the man said softly, "because one day it must carry fruit heavy enough to feed generations." Ifedayo scoffed. "But what if it never does?" Baba Dimeji smiled. "Then it will still have done its work underground. Not all growth is visible, my son." The boy looked up for the first time, truly seeing the tree, the strength of its trunk, the scars of its storms, the wideness of its shade. For the first time, he said nothing back. Ifedayo woke the next morning with a restlessness he couldn't explain. His essay had lost. Fola would now represent the school at the Elja-wide competition. His parents hadn't scolded him, nor had they spoken much about it. But their silence was a mirror, one that showed him how much he had rushed, how little he had understood. He walked into the backyard and stared at the mango tree again. The early sun painted its long branches gold, but it still bore no blossoms, no fruit. The leaves swayed in the breeze, whispering something he couldn't hear. For the first time, he didn't insult it. He sat under it and listened. That day after school, Ifedayo didn't run home. He took the long way through the cassava fields and stopped by the market road to watch how the women arranged their stalls. There was a rhythm to it, basket by basket, leaf by leaf. He saw Mama Uju patiently peeling yams, even when her child tugged at her wrapper. He noticed Papa Sunday, the town's cobbler, bent over a pair of old sandals, working slowly, stitching them as if they were made of gold. Everyone waited, everyone except him. He reached home late and sat for dinner quietly. His parents exchanged glances but said nothing. After they ate, Mama Ronke sat beside him. "You know," she said, "when your father planted that mango tree, it was only 2 feet tall." Ifedayo looked up. Was he sure it would grow? He didn't know, for sure, but he believed in the process. Every morning before going to the farm, he'd pour water around it, sometimes when we didn't have enough to drink. "Why?" She smiled. "Because not everything shows its promise in the beginning. Sometimes you water hope, not just roots." Ifedayo leaned back. 12 years is a long time. "Yes," she nodded, "but some things are worth that wait. That tree isn't just about mangoes. It's about faith." 2 weeks later, the essay competition was held at the community hall in Okuta, LGA. Fola was accompanied by the headmistress and 3 other students. Ifedayo stayed home from school that day. He said he had a stomachache. The truth was, he couldn't bear to watch someone else receive what he had once claimed too quickly. At midday, he sat alone in the backyard, looking up at the mango tree. A bird landed on one of the branches, hopping, pecking. Then it flew away. He suddenly stood up, grabbed a long stick, and began poking at the tree's branches. "Maybe I can force one down," he muttered. "Maybe there's something up there." But nothing fell. The branches held tight. Frustrated, he picked a small, green, unripe mango that had fallen early and bit into it. It was sour, dry. It stung his tongue. He spat out. Then he sat down and held the fruit in his palm, studying it like an enemy. "Why do you make me wait?" he whispered. Behind him, He heard his father's voice, low and even. Because sweetness doesn't grow in a hurry. Ifedayo didn't turn. His eyes stayed on the bitten fruit. Other trees have fruit already. Baba Dimeji walked closer. But they are not this tree. You cannot compare the moon and the firefly just because they both shine. Ifedayo looked up slowly. But what if I never shine at all? His father sat beside him. You will, but only if you let your roots grow deep first. That evening, Mama Ronke gave Ifedayo a small gift, a faded brown notebook with "Grow" written on the cover. Your father used to write in it when the farm was still small, she said. He'd note everything. When he planted, what worked, what didn't. It helped him see that progress was happening, even when the crops hadn't yet sprouted. Ifedayo opened it. The pages were lined with neat handwriting, some with dates from nearly 20 years ago. I want you to start writing in it now, she said. About what? About anything. What you learn, what you see, what you feel. Roots also grow through reflection. So he did. The next morning, he began writing. Just a line. Today, I did not get what I wanted, but I saw that the world does not run on my speed. He kept the notebook beside the mango tree in a small jar tucked between two stones, hidden from rain and wandering eyes. Each day, he added something new. Sometimes observations, sometimes frustrations. One entry read, I watched ants carry a dead fly. They moved one step at a time. It took them 30 minutes, but they got there. Another read, Fola won second place in the LGA. She smiled but didn't boast. I think that's another form of strength, humility. By the third week, he stopped writing because he had to. He wrote because he wanted to. It happened quietly. One Wednesday morning in school, the mathematics teacher asked a tough question. Usually, Ifedayo would be the first to raise his hand, eager to speak even if he was unsure. But this time he paused. He thought it through, carefully, slowly. Then he raised his hand. His answer was correct. The teacher smiled. Ifedayo, that was well explained. His classmates turned. This time, no one rolled their eyes or muttered, show off. Even Fola nodded with approval. At home that evening, Baba Dimeji noticed his son sitting under the mango tree with a math textbook open. You're not rushing anymore, he said. Ifedayo smiled faintly. Some things need time. His father said nothing, just smiled and walked away. Ifedayo looked up at the mango tree again. Still no fruit. But for the first time, he was okay with that. 3 months passed. The rains softened the soil. The mango tree grew fuller, though still no fruit showed. Yet Ifedayo no longer stared at it in bitterness. Some evenings, he simply sat beneath it and read, or thought, or wrote in the notebook. He was changing slowly, like water shaping stone. But change isn't always a straight path, and temptation often returns disguised as opportunity. It was a Tuesday morning assembly when the headmistress made the announcement that would stir the school again. We've been invited to participate in the Lagos State Junior Science Challenge, she said. Only one student will be chosen to represent our school. Prize, 100,000 naira and a new tablet computer. Final competition will be held in Lagos in 6 weeks. A buzz swept through the students like a wave. Ifedayo's heart raced. A tablet? He had never owned one. And the idea of traveling to Lagos, it felt like a portal to another world. Any student interested, the headmistress continued, must first pass the internal qualifying test next week. Immediately, students began whispering and forming groups. Fola was already reviewing past questions before the assembly ended. Ifedayo stood rooted, watching the crowd with silent determination. This time I'll do it right. No shortcuts, no rushing. But when he got home that day, he found a folded sheet under his desk, slipped there by his seatmate, Kunnel. Inside were photocopied past questions from the previous year's science challenge. On the corner was a scribbled note. Study these well. These are likely to come again. Most schools repeat questions. Trust me. Ifedayo froze. He sat down slowly, the sheet in his hand. Was this luck? Or a test? That night, he paced his room like a trapped animal. His conscience and ambition were fighting. You've worked hard lately, he whispered to himself. You deserve this. Just review these and see what shows up. He didn't tell his parents about the papers. For the next 2 days, he focused almost entirely on the leaked questions, memorized the answers, rewrote them, rehearsed them. He neglected his science textbook. When Fola invited him to a weekend study group, he declined. "I've got my own plan," he said coolly. She nodded, but looked disappointed. On the day of the internal test, Ifedayo walked into the classroom with a quiet smirk. He was early, confident. He took the front seat. The teacher, Mr. Lawal, walked in holding brown envelopes. "New question format this year," he said. Ifedayo sat up. "New?" He opened his envelope and scanned the paper. His heart dropped. Not one question matched the leaked ones. The rest of the test was a blur. He guessed half the answers. His pen slipped from his hand 3 times. Sweat dripped down his back despite the morning chill. When it was over, he didn't wait for friends. He packed his bag and left school early, telling the teacher he had a headache. He walked home, his feet dragging through the dust, his shoulders heavier than yam sacks. Under the mango tree, he collapsed into the familiar spot and covered his face. "I failed again." An hour later, his mother found him still sitting there. She said nothing at first, just sat beside him with a flask of cold zobo. After a while, she asked, "Did you try your best?" He shook his head. "No, I cheated. Not fully, but I tried to get ahead." Mama Ronke sighed deeply. "And did it work?" "No." She looked up at the mango tree. "That tree has never tried to skip a season. And yet, it's still standing." He looked at her. "I thought I was changing." "You are. But even roots get tested by wind. The question is, will you hold?" The results came out the next day. Fola was chosen. She had passed the test with flying colors. But something strange happened. She walked up to Ifedayo at break time and said, "You were distracted. You weren't yourself. What happened?" He swallowed. "I didn't prepare the right way." She gave a gentle nod. "Then next time, prepare with me." He blinked. "You'd help me? After I ignored your invite?" She smiled. "We grow faster when we help each other." Later that evening, under the mango tree, Ifedayo opened the journal and wrote, "Shortcuts are mirages. They promise water, but leave your mouth full of sand." He began studying the chapters he'd skipped, not to win a prize, but to understand. He went back to class with more humility. This time, he offered to help others, even when he had nothing to gain. Mr. Lawal noticed. "You've changed," he said one morning. "Not just your grades. Your spirit." Ifedayo smiled faintly. "I'm learning to wait." One Saturday morning, weeks after the science competition had ended and Lagos had come and gone, Ifedayo sat beneath the mango tree, scribbling thoughts into his notebook. He paused. Something fluttered above. He looked up. There, nestled high in the crook of one of the tree's thicker branches, tiny green buds. Just a few, but they were there. Mango blossoms. He stood slowly, almost afraid to breathe. He reached out, not to touch them, but just to feel their presence. They were real. He called for his father. Baba Dimeji came out, wiping his hands on a rag. He followed Ifedayo's gaze. He smiled softly. "So it begins." Ifedayo turned to him. "It's taken 13 years." His father nodded. "And still worth it." They stood in silence, 2 generations of waiting, joined by a tree and a lesson. The following Monday at school, something unexpected happened. During the short break between classes, the students gathered outside to stretch their legs. Ifedayo was walking past the school garden when he noticed something glinting in the dusty soil. He bent down and picked it up, a small, polished stone, round and smooth, shining with hues of blue and silver in the sunlight. "A lucky charm," whispered Fola, who had followed him with curiosity. "You should keep it." He shrugged. "I guess." But something about the stone pulled him. It wasn't just shiny. It felt heavy, warm in his palm, as if it held a secret. He put it in his pocket and went back to class, forgetting about it for a time. That evening, Baba Dimeji was at the edge of their land, digging with a cutlass and spade. The cassava needed more space, and he was determined to expand the ridges. Ifedayo joined him reluctantly, his arms still sore from the weekend's work. They dug side by side, the silence broken only by the rhythmic thud of blade against soil. "Do you know why I still dig, even when my back hurts?" Baba Dimeji asked suddenly. Ifedayo looked up. "Because we need food. His father smiled, a sad, quiet smile. Yes, but also because the land remembers. Every drop of sweat I give it stores. Not for now, for later. That's why rushing makes no sense. If you harvest before the roots are ready, you'll get nothing. Ifedayo said nothing, but his hand brushed his pocket where the shiny stone lay. That night, he placed it under his pillow and dreamed. He saw a tree that glowed in moonlight, its fruit golden and pulsing with light. A voice said, "Pluck too soon, and it turns to dust." He woke up drenched in sweat. The next few weeks blurred with school, farm work, and dreams of ripe fruit. Ifedayo's classmates were preparing for the district quiz competition, something only the brightest could attend. He wanted to join, desperately. "I think I'm ready," he told Fola, clutching a tattered notebook of general knowledge facts. "I've studied enough." Fola raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" The teacher said it's for senior students. "I'll prove him wrong." When he approached Mr. Akingbade, the head teacher, he was met with a gentle chuckle. "You have a bright mind, Ifedayo, but the quiz is in 2 weeks. Your classmates have been preparing for months." "But I can do it," he insisted. "You want fruit before it ripens," the teacher said kindly, tapping the boy's forehead with a knuckle. "Sometimes, waiting is wiser than forcing." Angrily, Ifedayo stormed out. That night, he refused to read or help on the farm. He was tired of hearing the same message, wait, wait, wait. But nature doesn't bend to impatience. The next day, he tried to show off during an oral presentation and forgot his lines, standing mute before the class. Laughter rang in his ears. Fola's eyes were kind, but even that stung. He ran to the back of the school building, tears prickling his eyes. There, beside the cracked wall, was the school's smallest mango tree, planted by students years ago. Its trunk was thin, its branches heavy with pale green fruit. One mango looked almost ready. Almost. He reached for it, hand trembling, then paused. The shiny stone in his pocket pressed against his leg. He pulled it out, held it next to the mango. In the sunlight, the fruit looked bright but unripe. Still hard, still young. With a sigh, he let his hand fall. Back at home, Mama Ronke had noticed the shift in her son. He was quieter now, less eager to argue, more thoughtful. She watched him helping Baba Dimeji patch up the chicken coop one evening and smiled. Change was coming. "Ifedayo," she said after dinner, "come sit." He joined her on the bench outside. The stars scattered across the sky like spilled salt. "You know the guava tree behind the house?" she asked. He nodded. "I planted it the week you were born. Your father told me it wouldn't survive. Poor soil, no space. But I kept watering it, even when the leaves looked like they were dying. It took 4 years before we saw the first fruit." He blinked. 4 years. She chuckled. "Yes, but when it came, it was the sweetest guava I've ever tasted. And every year since, it gives us more." She turned to him, her voice soft. "Great things take time, Ife. Don't forget that." That night, he dreamed again, this time of a guava tree that shimmered like glass, with birds nesting in its branches, singing songs of waiting. Weeks passed, and the rains returned. The village came alive again. Lush greenery, flooded paths, and fresh winds whistling through the eaves of Ifedayo's home. His daily rhythm settled. School in the morning, farm work in the evening, study at night. Something had shifted deep within him, like an old drum retuned, now resonating with purpose. Still, temptation didn't sleep. It came one afternoon when Baba Dimeji sent Ifedayo to deliver yams to Mama Titi, the yam seller near the express junction. The road was muddy, and the sun beat down fiercely. He carried the basket on his head, weaving between potholes, his sandals sinking into the slush. On his way back, near a cement block industry, he saw them, 2 boys from school, standing under a mango tree. "Ah, Ifedayo," one of them called. It was Tolu, a boy known more for skipping class than attending. Come see this." Curious, Ifedayo walked over. In Tolu's hand was a smartphone, shiny, new, probably borrowed or stolen. The screen showed a cryptocurrency app. "See, this thing is the way now. Money just flow in seconds. You just press and earn. No need for all that digging cassava or writing exam." Ifedayo hesitated. The screen flashed with fake numbers. Tolu grinned. Just 10K. You give me, I plug you in. We go make him big before next week. The offer lingered in the air like smoke. But then, the shiny stone in Ifedayo's pocket seemed to burn. Not in heat, but in memory of guava trees, quiet dreams, and mangoes left unpicked. He stepped back slowly. No, he said. It's not for me. Tolu scoffed. Na Usabi. Na small boy day wait. Men day hustle. But Ifedayo walked away, his back straight, though his heart was pounding. That night, he told Baba Dimeji about it. His father just nodded, his face unreadable. But the next morning, a small clay bowl of fresh pap and honey was waiting for him, steaming on the table. Ifedayo's patience began to yield fruit. Not grand, not instant, but real. At school, Mr. Akingbade noticed his diligence. One morning, during the staff room meeting, he told the other teachers, "There's a boy in JSS 3. Ifedayo, quiet but steady. Watch him, he's going places." That week, Ifedayo was asked to join the school's science project team. They were designing a simple irrigation model for rural farms. It was the first time he was given real responsibility, and he poured himself into it. At the farm, too, things shifted. The cassava sprouted thick, healthy leaves. The maize was knee-high. Baba Dimeji smiled more. Even Mama Ronke began setting aside small savings each week from their vegetable sales. She called it Ifedayo's future fund. One day, Fola pulled him aside. "You've changed," she said, poking him playfully. He shrugged. "Maybe." "No," she continued. "It's like you stopped chasing, and somehow everything started coming to you." He didn't have an answer. But that night, he dreamed again of the mango tree, now laden with golden fruit, its branches bending with promise. The birds didn't sing this time. Instead, the wind whispered, "Almost there." The district science fair arrived in July. Ifedayo stood by their model, pipes made from old straws, a small water tank formed from recycled plastic, and neatly labeled charts describing the irrigation process. Students from 8 schools wandered past. Judges in suits and glasses asked questions. Ifedayo answered them all, calmly, confidently. When the final announcement came, his school was named second overall. But something else happened. One of the judges, a man from the State Agricultural Institute, approached Mr. Akingbade. "That boy," he said, pointing to Ifedayo, "he has potential. Let me talk to his parents. There's a rural tech mentorship opening in the state capital. If he's willing to work hard, we'll train him." That evening, when Baba Dimeji heard the news, he sat in silence for a full minute. Then, without a word, he walked to the cassava field, knelt, and pressed his forehead to the soil. Mama Ronke wept. She wept with joy. And Ifedayo? He held the shiny stone in his palm one last time, now worn and dull from use. Then he placed it in the soil under the mango tree at school, right where he'd once almost picked an unripe fruit. It had taught him enough. 3 months later, Ifedayo packed his small bag and left for the state capital. He looked back at his home, mud walls, zinc roof, chickens scratching near the well. The place where his dreams had been planted. In his heart, he carried lessons heavier than any textbook. Great things take time. Rushing spoils the fruit. Delayed gratification isn't denial, it's preparation. At the Institute, he met boys and girls from different parts of Nigeria. He learned coding, irrigation design, soil science. He saw drones watering dry fields. He even presented a model at a youth agricultural tech summit in Abuja. Years later, Ifedayo became the founder of a startup that provided smart irrigation tools to rural farmers, empowering villages just like his. And every product his company shipped had a message printed beneath the logo. Pluck only when ripe. Moral of the story: delayed gratification is powerful. Great things take time. Ifedayo's story shows us that true success doesn't come overnight. Like seeds in the soil, our dreams need patience, sacrifice, and steady growth. When we resist the lure of quick fixes and instant pleasure, we allow deeper roots to form. And when the harvest comes, it is sweeter than we could have imagined. That brings us to the end of the story. What lesson did you take from it? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you'll know whenever we release a new video. Also, feel free to share this with someone who might enjoy it. Thank you so much.